Chapter 17. Springtime. The spring, so dear to all creatures, young and old, came at last, and before the first few days had gone, the king rode through its budding valley to see his little daughter. He had been in some distant part of his domain all winter, for he was not in the habit of stopping in one great city or visiting only his favourite country houses, but he moved from place to place so that all the people might know him. Wherever he journeyed, he kept a constant lookout for the ablest and best men to put into office, and wherever he found himself mistaken, and those he had appointed were incapable or unjust, he removed them at once. Hence, you see, it was his care for his people that kept him from seeing the princess as often as he would have liked. You may wonder why he did not take her with him, but there were several reasons against his doing so, and I suspect her great-great-grandmother had had a principal hand in preventing it. Once more, Irene heard the bugle blast, and at once she was at the gates to meet her father as he rode up on his great white horse. After they had been alone for a little while, she thought of what she had resolved to ask him. "Please, King Papa," she said, "will you tell me where I got this pretty ring? I can't remember." The king looked at it. A strange, beautiful smile spread like sunshine over his face, and an answering smile, but a questioning one, spread like moonlight over Irene's. "This was your Queen Mamma's once," he said. "And why isn't it hers now?" asked Irene. "She does not want it now," said the king, looking grave. "Why does she not want it now?" "Because she is gone where all those rings are made." "And when will I see her?" asked the princess. "Not for some time yet," answered the king, and tears came into his eyes. Irene did not remember her mother, and did not know why her father looked so, and why the tears came into his eyes, but she put her arms around his neck and kissed him and asked no more questions. The king was much disturbed upon hearing the report from the gentlemen at arms concerning the creatures they had seen, and I presume would have taken Irene with him that very day, but for the presence of the ring on her finger assured him of another presence. About half an hour before he left, Irene saw him go up the old stairs, and he did not come down again until they were ready to start. And she thought to herself that he had been up to see the old lady. When he went away, he left another 6 men behind him, so that there might be 6 of them always on guard. And now, in the lovely springtime weather, Irene was out on the mountain for the greater part of the day. In the warmest hollows were the loveliest primroses, and not so many of them that she ever got tired. As often she saw a new one opening an eye of light in the blind earth, she would clap her hands in gladness, and unlike some children I know, instead of pulling it, she would touch it tenderly, as if it were a new baby, and having made its acquaintance, would leave as happily as she found it. She treated the plants which were growing like birds' nests. Every fresh flower was a new little bird to her. She would pay visits to the flower nests she knew, remembering each by itself. She would go down on her hands and her knees beside one and say, "Good morning. Are you smelling very sweet this morning? Goodbye." And then she would go to another nest and say the same thing. This was a favourite amusement of hers, and there were many flowers up and down, and she loved them all, but the primroses were her favourite. "They're not too shy, but they're not a bit forward," she would say to Lootie. There were goats too about, all over the mountain, and when the little kids came, she was as pleased with them as she was with the flowers. The goats belonged to the miners mostly. A few of them were even Curdie's mothers. But there were a good many wild ones that seemed to belong to nobody. These the goblins counted as theirs, and it was upon them that they partially lived. They set snares and dug pits for them, and did not scruple to take what tame ones happened to be caught. But they would not try to steal them in other manners, because they were afraid of the dogs that the hill people kept to watch over their goats, for the knowing dogs always tried to bite the goblins' feet. But the goblins had a kind of sheep of their own, a very queer creature, which they drove out to feed at night, and which other goblin creatures were wise enough to keep good watch over for them, for they knew that they should have their bones by and by.